One of the wildest parts about coastal conditions and boating in general is going to be weather. Now, yes, of course, most of the time you're going to be able to look at weather forecasts and hopefully not find yourself in a situation like this. But coastal boating and boating around lakes in general still comes with problems. Storms do pop up, and many times they can pop up quickly and be significantly stronger than we thought. So you always got to be diligent when you're heading out for a day of boating to double and triple check that weather and make sure you don't wind up in a situation like this, just like some of the things we'll see in this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. Now, of course, weather is just one of many things that can go wrong when you're out there trying to enjoy a day of boating. But one of the biggest problems we see in boating isn't necessarily things that go wrong. It's situations that we see boaters put themselves in. For example, this summer has been a wild one, and one of the wildest parts of this summer is I feel like it's been the summer of the bow rider. For whatever reason, we've seen more of this year than I ever have in prior years. If I go back 5 or 6 years ago, I feel like I never really saw stuff like this happening. Now, maybe we just didn't get the video clips back then, and now that everybody's got a phone or some sort of recording device, we see a lot more of it. Or maybe more people are actually just aware that they're not supposed to be doing this, so people are more apt to film it when they see it going down. And I just don't understand why people do it. It can't really add that much more fun to boating.
Look at that person. I am. Why? What a moron.
Now, some other mistakes we'll see being made is people boating where they shouldn't boat. Now, of course, the old boat ramp is infamous for having mistakes being made in boating, and many times the mistakes we see down at the boat ramp are almost always self-inflicted. Sometimes they can be weather-related or mechanical failure, but for example, in this situation, this crew came up, lined up with the trailer, and completely missed. And when they missed, they wound up hitting the pole on the side. But where I really get confused on this one is the approach they're taking to try and get it back over to the trailer. For example, they came in under their own power, turned it off after they missed, and now instead of turning it back on to try and get it lined up with the trailer, they're using every method they have to not have to turn this back on and trying to do it any other way they can. Let me know in the comments what you think of this one. Would it have been easier for them just to fire this back up and try and get it lined up correctly on the trailer, or try and take the approach they're taking here, where basically they're trying to get it pulled back over? Part of the problem, he's sitting in the bow like this, which means he's adding extra weight to the bow right now, so they're trying to pull it across a trailer that it's hitting, where if he would move more to the center of the boat or the back of the boat, they probably would have had an easier time getting it across. But here we can see he does finally get it over, but what happens next is even wilder. So again, they're over here now, but of course the boat's not facing the trailer and they've got to get the stern around. So instead of grabbing a stern line or trying to walk it alongside the dock, they go with this method. Again, I still default back to, why didn't we just turn it back on and work the engine to go ahead and do this? Instead, we're just going to use human power to try and get it back over. Now, sometimes the things that go wrong in the water can be a combination of several things. Sometimes it will be things like a combination of weather and probably boating where you shouldn't boat. Now, when I say boating where you shouldn't boat, you see this little boat right here. They're heading into the surf line, and that is definitely not where you want to be on a vessel. As you can see, they get rocked by that little wave right there. But from this angle, you can see it's a whole lot worse than it initially looks from that first angle. As they come out, this crew winds up sideways in the surf, winds up taking a little ride all the way back into the inlet, fortunately, where they wind up eventually capsizing. Now, fortunately, in this situation for this crew, a sailboat was coming by, and they were able to be the good Samaritan and pull these crews out of the water, but you always got to be cautious about where you're boating and when you're boating. Now, sometimes boating in the wrong spot's not always your fault. You think you're in the right of way, you think you're in the right line, when all of a sudden somebody comes along and tries to tell you you're not. Now let me know in the comments what you think actually went wrong here. Was it mechanical failure, possibly human error, or did somebody just not follow the rules of the road? Let me know in the comments. Now another thing we see happen quite often in boating is not necessarily boating in the wrong spot, but trying to launch the boat in the wrong spot.
Hanging. Nah, I wouldn't. I'd send it.
Sometimes it's pretty easy to be a full send guy when you're sitting behind the camera and have no real skin in the game.
It's floating, brah. It's floating.
What's wild when you think about it, this crew obviously scouted this area, scouted this bank, and decided this was the best spot. I wonder how many spots they looked at before deciding this one.
Job, actually. Nah, send it.
Looks like at this point they decided to go ahead and call it quits, but camera guy's still like, nah bro, send it, we're launching here.
Cuzzy. Nothing in it.
Water coming in. 3 spotlight shit, man.
I'll save you, Rodney.
Well, fortunately for them, our full send guy in the last scene wasn't too wrong. They did eventually wind up getting it launched right there. Now, you might wonder, what does full send guy do during the off season, when boating season is done? Well, they're typically not done with the water. They'll just slap a wetsuit on, find something else to get out there in the water and full send. Now, don't get me wrong, full send guy's not always successful in actually sending it. Sometimes they wind up getting stuck, like we see here. Now, some of those full send stucks are a little worse than others. For example, they're going to have a tough time getting this one back off the beach. And other times, full send guy might have just sent it just a little too hard onto the sandbar and has to figure out how to get it off. In this situation, the wild part with quad motors on the back, he's actually stirring up so much water, it was kicking everybody's anchors free off the beach, so they all had to go pull him up and grab him and hold him as he tries to get off. Now at first, it looks like this thing's not going to budge, even with 1,800 horsepower on the back. She doesn't want to move. I mean, it's a big heavy boat, I get it. He's got a beach so far up here that even the bow thruster is completely out of the water to show you exactly how much dirt he's got underneath him at this point in time. But it doesn't make him quit. Full send guy doesn't give up that easily. He just knows he needs to put a little more power behind it and send it a little harder, and everything should go fine from there. And as you wind up seeing here, full send guy's not always wrong, as he keeps putting that power behind it, digging a hole behind him, and winds up eventually getting out. Thanks for watching, crew. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like Adam Trask, Steve Collins, and Adam Coolidge did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.